Hey there, so first of all, let me say thank you for ordering the plans for the chicken coop. I really appreciate that you chose my design, and this video is going to be about how to scale the coop and run up or down. This coop here is 5 feet in this direction and 6 feet wide, and that's good for, I would say, 4 to 10 chickens, and which covers most bases, but some people might want it a little bit shorter. Some people might want more than that. And you can scale it. Now, that's going to require a different amount of materials, which is going to be up to you to kind of figure out. And it's going to change some things, and you have to kind of really think it out as you're going along. But I'll give you some recommendations on what I would recommend. So I would recommend leaving the sides completely alone and just changing the width. We're going to call this the width. The back face and the front face, the face with the nesting boxes and the other side. So at 6 feet, like I said, 4 to 10 chickens very comfortably. If you want it, most people might want to make it wider, and I would recommend kind of going in 2-foot increments wider. Now, basically, what you'll need to do is just add 24 inches to any measurement that's running horizontal. We're going to call this direction horizontal. So you're not going to touch anything on this plane. You can always make the run larger. You can add another 4-foot section to make it 12 feet long, or I think 16 feet long, and that'll give you a lot of extra space. And if you wanted to go wider here, you could still leave the standard run the same 8 feet wide. But anyway, we're going to change those directions. So in this example here on the sides, you wouldn't have to change anything, which is nice. Nothing here changed. And then in this direction is where you would start changing things. So this horizontal piece on the bottom and these 2 red horizontal pieces, let's say you want to make it 8 feet wide to accommodate another 2 to 4 chickens, just depending on how big they are. You would just add 24 inches to those measurements, and then you would add another floor joist. So that's pretty easy. But you got to remember, now instead of 8 foot, well, you have 8 foot long 2x4s that the plans call for. You'd be able to use a full 8 foot 2x4 here. There wouldn't be any cutoff, but you would need to add an additional one there. Same as here, you wouldn't have any cutoffs. Now, a lot of the cutoffs we use for knee braces and stuff like that, so you might have to make an additional trip back to your lumber store to get some of that stuff. Okay, here's another plane that we would increase. So the red would get increased by 24 inches and subtracted. Say you wanted to make it 4 feet wide, you would just subtract it. You could remove one of these. Now, if you want to increase it to 24 inches or even 4 feet, you would just add that number to it, to everything, and add another wall stud or 2. These walls really don't need to be that strong. So if you're stretching at 24 inches, add another wall stud. If you're stretching at 48 inches, add another. Now, I wouldn't really recommend going past 10 feet wide, because then you're going to have some issues supporting the bottom. I would recommend upping, instead of 2x4s along the bottom, maybe 2x6s. So if you're going to go past 12 feet, you're really going to have to do some serious modifications. So I would recommend stretching it to a max of 10 feet, and I think you'll be just fine. And you can get, I would say 14, 15, 16 maybe chickens in a 10 foot wide. It's going to be a little crowded. You won't want huge breeds, smaller breeds. Okay, on this page, you won't have to change any of this. Same thing here. On this back one, same thing. We're going to increase these red plates here by whatever your distance, add or subtract. For windows, if you're shrinking it, you'd probably want to go down to a single window. If you're expanding it, you're just going to have to figure out what spacing you want. If you're adding 24 inches here, you could add, 8 inches to this gap, 8 inches to this gap, 8 inches to this gap. Keep your window center. You're just going to have to play with the aesthetics that you want and figure out your spacing down here. You'll probably want to add maybe another wall stud down here in the green. Again, you'll just add 24, add 24. We're just going to pretend we're making this 8 feet wide. The same would go true again for if you're shrinking it or making it even longer. Then you would add another stud. Now, you might not even want to add another stud and just make this section out here just more storage. Because really they're only going to use, 3, maybe 4 nesting boxes. Ours usually only just use 2. Wouldn't have to change this. You're going to have to probably buy 1 to 2 more sheets of T111 to cover all those pieces up, and you're just going to trim it out essentially as you normally would. This measurement would get changed. These would get changed. Now I would just recommend putting your blocks kind of in place that support those, and then stretch a tape measure across from one block to the other to kind of get your estimate of what your roost need to be. Same thing here, you would just keep this measurement the same. This measurement, add your 24 inches. Then you have a little, 12 inches wide here. Draw a 90-degree angle there, 12 inches out, and then just take a chalk line or your tape measure to connect those. You don't have to figure that measurement out, and then once you know it, you can cut that piece and cut those pieces. And then you just want to fill these in. You'll just need another extra few pieces of this, and this just help keep poop from falling back behind that little droppings board. And then on the roof, again, we're just going to be increasing these blue ones. You can go straight 8-footers on those. Add 24 inches to it, and it should all just lay perfectly. Now you're going to be off a little bit on your roof panels. You might have to cut one of them down because these are like 37 inches, 37.5 inches wide, and when they overlap on the seams. And so you'll just lay them on top of there, see what the extra that you have to cut off is. If it's falling weird on a rib, you can extend the metal past these top side rafters a little bit, and it's not a big deal. You'll need to probably buy a little bit more trim from what the plans call for. These will be 8-footers. Boom, boom. You won't have to change anything on this face. This you'll have to change, make it a little bit wider. The doors will be the same. Now for the run, this run is 8 feet wide, and you can extend it to 10 feet. And again, I wouldn't go too much past 10 feet without upping the roof to 2x6s. And if you do that, it's going to raise it up just a touch where it's going to bump into the bottom of this coop roof. So you would need to, drop the wall, shave the walls down a little bit. So I would just recommend it, make it 10 feet wide max, and you can always make it a little bit longer by another 4 feet, add another 4-foot section onto it. So there you go. That's in a nutshell. Hopefully that helps with some questions on how to scale this. A lot of it's kind of going to be on you. It's kind of expected that you have a little bit of experience, but it's really not that hard to scale it. I apologize, I don't have, one at 4 feet, one at 8 feet, one at 10 feet wide. It's just expensive to have these plans done, and quite a big, it would cost me quite a bit to have that all done, and there's really not a ton of people that are asking to have them scaled, so it's just it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's very doable. So it's pretty simple. You leave 2 of the walls the same, just stretch everything that's going horizontally by whatever your increase that you want is, and you're probably gonna have to make a couple extra trips to the hardware store because materials are gonna be a little different. But I hope that helps. Thanks again for buying.